It's a pleasure to welcome you to our panel, the first panel of the day. And my name is Sabi Ahmed. I'm the Associate Director and Curator of the Ishara Art Foundation in Dubai. And I'm going to be moderating this session. And I'm joined by the lovely two really bright thinkers with us today. Nora Al-Dabagh, who's online with us. We see her right there. Nora is the Arts and Creative Planning Director at the Royal Commission of Al-Ula. And I have with me here physically Nadine Ghaffar, founder and general manager of, I'll try and pronounce this right, Art d'Egypte. Yes? Well, welcome both of you. Just to give you a quick background as a way of introducing the session, I have been working with archives for the past 10 years. And in the process of working with archives, I've had the pleasure of closely talking to not only historians and archivists and librarians, but also scientists, also technologists, because it's a lot of digital archiving work. And the session today is really around heritage and reviving heritages and a new kind of cultural renaissance in the 21st century, yeah? So having the experience of working in archives, the one thing I found really interesting around all questions of history and all questions around all the monuments, museums, archaeology, library sciences, all of these is that we're at a really crucial and critical juncture where all of these spaces are being transformed. And I want to quickly outline three things that I feel especially strong as impacts in these fields. Number one, climate change. In the past, when disciplines like museum histories or archaeology started developing in the 18th century, for instance, nature was considered to be somewhat benign. It could be controlled. It had to be tamed. And so you discover ruins, you create buildings, you do modernization. Right now, nature is on a spree. We have no idea what it's going to do to us. And in fact, heritage and buildings and museums, in fact, have to sometimes even face the brunt of nature, face the brunt of climate. So a lot of monuments and heritage sites are in fact quite at risk because of nature and climate change, as opposed to necessarily benefiting from them, you know? So that's number one. Number two, the past and present, in the way at least colonialism and history developed, was you can delegate the past into museums and history books and archaeological sites, and you can be in the present, which keeps them separate. Right now, we're in a time when the past, present, and future are really corroding into one another, really seeping into one another. And I mean this very literally, because, with climate change, since I've just discussed it, and with a lot of ice melting, so I'm just taking a few minutes to frame this panel, right? So with all the ice caps melting and climate change, what we end up having is actually a lot of bacteria and microorganisms from 50,000 years ago coming back alive as we speak right now. So we're actually living with species that are 50,000 years old. You can look it up on Google, on BBC. So what we thought was past and dead and now needs to be preserved is actually coming back alive in reality, in physicality, not metaphorically or poetically. So that's number two. The past and present, how we separate them is not as easy as we think, as we used to think it is. And the third, after climate change and the past-present conundrum, is the digital revolution, where we are right now, where the separation between what's digital, what's representational, and what's actual or physical is not anymore as separable as it used to be. We're in an analogical digital age. It's not a digital age only. It's where we're in an age of augmented reality. Increasingly, museums are using digital 3D printed objects to have dissemination of the same objects everywhere. Increasingly, heritage sites which have been damaged are using real-time projections to bring back and bring alive some of the things from the past, not through physically reconstructing them, but virtually projecting them, right? I mean, look at this panel right now. We're in an analogical digital panel. We've got one panelist online and one panelist physically present, right? So why I'm bringing all of this up is because if we're looking at the question of, say, Renaissance, a kind of cultural rebirth, and a rebirth in the past that we've seen, say, in the 15th, 16th century of Europe, there was a very clear definition of a golden age that rested in Greece and Rome that had to be revived in the 15th, 16th century. But if the past and present are no more separable in the same way, and actually the past and present come alive, live together, a little bit like Jurassic Park, if you think about it, then how are we supposed to look at a Renaissance? How are we supposed to look at heritage? Is heritage something that belongs to the past or to the present? And the two panelists I have with me, I think will be really exciting to hear from them, how they look at some of these questions around a kind of cultural rebirth in the present moment, around questions of what do heritage sites mean today? Yes? So what I'm going to begin is by asking both the panelists, beginning with Nadine, a question that actually might be of interest to all of us here, which is that, do you think we're seeing a renaissance in traditional arts, craft, and culture permeating through the creative economy?
So I would rephrase it. Yes. I would say that this is a renaissance. And I think as humans always have these recurrent renaissances. We've had many in Egypt. And I believe in 2016, when Art d'Egypte started this initiative of merging past and present, and now future, this is a renaissance. And again, the whole idea is that we don't exist in a vacuum, as you're saying. You were talking about microorganisms, and really, when you go to, for instance, an old museum in Cairo, which is a 1902, the one where we had our first exhibition, it gives it a contextualization. It gives who we are today, again, all of us, and I see this in Saudi, I see this in UAE. We're starting to look within ourselves and within our region. And this is what is giving everything a deeper context. And I think this is why, in my opinion, this is the renaissance of the region, is that we are looking within our region. We stopped looking outwards, and as you were referring to colonialism, again, we have to start looking at how we see ourselves versus how the world sees us. So first we look for ourselves from within. We have our identity, and surprisingly, since Art d'Egypte started in 2016, year on year, we've been getting, this year we had on our private opening 500 international VIPs fly in on their personal accounts, of course, because we have no budget. But I mean, really, and we've had 500,000 visitors to the exhibition. So this is just a proof of when we look from within, and from within the region, we've had collaborations with Saudi and UAE as well. So, in my opinion, this is what is happening these days.
That's beautiful, thank you. I'm going to come back to you on Art d'Egypte in a bit. But before we go there, can I ask you, Nora, the same question? Do you think there's a kind of renaissance happening, or what Nadine calls a re-renaissance happening? And how do you relate to it?
Thank you so much, Sabih. It's a pleasure to be with you and Nadine today on the panel. I think the choice, the phrase is a good phrase, renaissance. It is a revival and continuation of what existed there, and what the legacies that were there, rather than like starting from a new slate. What is exciting is that today, as practitioners, as supporters of culture and creative industries, we're creating the infrastructure to support the ecosystem and draw from a rich pool. So I definitely see it as a continuation and a thread, because art and design have always been part of the fabric of the region in general. And we've actually yesterday just announced the second edition of Desert X that will open in February, and we see that as the next chapter of a continued heritage rather than.
Thank you, Nora. Two very key words seem to have come up: a re-renaissance and a resource pool. And I think that's a really important point to add in this panel, because I think both of your institutions are creating resources, not just objects, excavated from the past, not just buildings that can be presented, but tools to view them, tools to read them, tools to contextualize all of those things. So I'm going to move back to Nadine now to ask about Art d'Egypte, but before I do that, can I play the film that you shared?
Sure.
Yes, thank you.
Contemporary art, a language that everybody understands. Having these cultural bridges between Egypt and the rest of the world shows the strong ties we have with everyone. This is a message to humanity. This is a message to the world.
وجود التراث القديم جنبا إلى جنب مع التراث الحديث، هذه قضية أعطت بعد للعمق التاريخي وأيضا للحاضر الباهر، تعطي أيضا إضاءة على المستقبل.
In 2017, we were able to do the Tahrir Museum exhibition. The year after, we started growing a bit bigger and we took over Manial Palace. After that, we did the Mu'izza Street. We were in the middle of the street with thousands of people living there. As we enter a space, we work with the local community. This synergy that was there that night with collectors from around the world and the coffee shops and everyone, everything was so harmonious.
The dialogue between our heritage and the contemporary artists is living proof that Egypt will remain a hub for inspiration and creativity.
Egypt is the land of 7,000 years of ancient history. But at the same time, we have this incredible story that is just beginning.
I think that the world has been well aware of the greatness of Egypt for a long, long time. By placing these contemporary works here can lead to some transformative experience for people.
Brilliant idea that's happening for the first time. This will be something the artist will never forget in his time.
Incredible. Can I then ask you now, what drove the vision of Art d'Egypte? And maybe if you can share with us some key moments that you feel were very inspiring in this journey you've had with the organization.
So again, I think, what drove this is we have an abundance of heritage sites, and as Noura was referring, there's a thread, there's a transcendence. Our past has always been there. It's part of our everyday lives and so many things. And a lot of, internationally, people look at our region in a different way. In reality, there are people like Noura, like myself, like our teams, with empowered women in the region that does not prevail, it doesn't show. Our president, for instance, El-Sisi, has done something transformative. For the first time, there are so many women ministers in Egypt, and this is, like, for us, very surprising, and surprising to the rest of the world. But in reality, here we are. We are here. The Minister of Culture is a woman. Women have strong positions. This does not show to the world. So by doing initiatives like Al-Ola, like Egypt, like our Dubai, like all these things, with all the press coverage, shows to the world who we really are. We have a region full of amazing young people. We have an amazing creative industry that people might not know of. So by showcasing this in a 360-degree manner and having this experience, because Art d'Egypte is not an exhibition full stop. No, it's a full experience. People come for a 4-day immersive experience of what contemporary Egypt is today, linked to our past. So in a nutshell, that is the whole idea for the international audience. But for the local audience, we also are trying to democratize art. So everyone's like, how do you do the public opening before the private opening? But yes, we do. We do the public opening every year before the private opening. I give the upper hand to the public. And we try to democratize art. So by having art in public spaces, and actually, by the way, Noura, maybe you might not know this, but Saeed al-Farsi, who was a neighbor of my dad in Alexandria for a couple of years, and in Gadda, this man had this vision, look how many years ago, to have amazing sculptures in the middle of the city. So this is democratizing art. So having art not enclosed to a certain audience, but to the rest of the public. And having them in those public spaces, you're not, there's no inhibition for these people to go and see these pieces of art. We've had 500,000 visitors. It's insane. Even myself and the team could not imagine the number of people that saw this exhibition, and really people that are into art, young people. People came from different governorates. We even had buses for free because most of them could just afford, the entry of the pyramids, but could not have a car to tour the entire plateau. The reach. So art can shape society. We had 2.9 billion was the reach. It's insane, and all this happened organically. We didn't even have a PR agency. Couldn't afford one. So basically, when something is true and real and there's an effort of 8 amazing young ladies that work with us. I mean, we're a team of women. It just shows all this press was absolutely organic, and really, art does shape society. I have the horse and carriage guys that take people around. They made a living out of it. They were so smart that they said, okay, one tour for the exhibition, tours for the. So they made money within the period of the exhibition, and they learned about art because they were acting as art guides. They were telling people each artist, and so really, art is in the heart of so many things and can definitely shape society. And I think we're a tiny team, but honestly, we've been collaborating with so many entities from the region, and I think together we're much stronger, and it gives a very strong message to the world.
Thank you, and congratulations. I mean,
Thank
a big round
you.
of applause. It's just so many things to celebrate here. It's extraordinary, and congratulations, and way to go. I mean, more power to you. I have a few questions, but I'll come to you after Nora. Nora, Alula is like no place on earth. I mean, anyone who's seen pictures, and we will have some pictures. Let me see. Oh, sorry. I think I must have skipped the slide. We will have pictures, but Nora, like I said, Alula is like no place on earth. Can you tell us a little bit about the journey behind first encountering it and bringing it in front of the eyes of the whole world?
Thank you. I think really the more we discover, the more extraordinary Al-Ula becomes, and we're discovering things by the day. But also, when you're discovering more, you need to protect more. You need to be more precious in conserving. And I think with the creation of the Royal Commission back in July 2017, there was a major program of heritage and nature discovery that mobilized on site that is still working on daily basis. So today we have over 100 archaeologists in Al-Ula discovering and unveiling stories every day, and I think that's what makes it exciting. It's living history. There is, the history has stretched back to architectural presence from 200,000 years, and this gives Al-Ula very much uniqueness and the story that unveils alive in front of us daily.
Can you tell us your journey, Nora? How you came in and how it's been in shaping the vision for Al-Ula?
I joined the team in 2018, and prior to that, most of my work was in the cultural sector. And when with Saudi's vision 2030, obviously there was a strong shift and focus in culture and creative industries. And when this opportunity came, and I came to learn about Al-Ula, I have visited Al-Ula before, and since then that image has stuck in my head for a long time, and to have that opportunity to create a footprint and to actually contribute to the next chapter of Al-Ula, it was really a dream for me, and to work with the community. I mean, unveiling the programs day by day. We've started one program that's very dear to my heart, Madrasat al-Dira. Madrasat al-Dira is the first girls' school in Al-Ula, and was abandoned around 20 years ago, where students have moved to different facilities. And we've renovated the school to now become the Art and Design Center. So just walking every day and seeing, the jewelry workshops, natural pigments, design foundation, and really looking at traditions in a contemporary way. While also we have the residency programs where artists are just living there, interacting with the community, and getting their inspiration from the history of Al-Ula and the landscape and their interaction with the community. It's just, very much, it's a creative destination. There's so much activity, and it's a vibrant place to be, and I'm glad to be part of this team.
Wonderful, thank you. Actually, something I'm always very curious about is when new organizations are set up and they're so rooted in local culture, but also looking outwards to the globe, they have to invent new ways of structuring their departments, different ways of thinking about how we're going to connect with people both globally as well as locally. So maybe Nadine, I can ask you here at this point, how is Art d'Egypte structured? In the sense, is there a big team? Is there a small team? Is there a lot of outsourced work? Now, outsourced work really depends a lot on there being a field where a lot of professionals are already trained to come and join the institutions that are there. But then in many contexts, such as in Asia, you don't have all of that training. So in fact, a lot of institutions like ours are also capacity building. They're training young people for going out there in the world, but also for contributing back in the cities where such institutions are based. So maybe you could tell a little bit about how Art d'Egypte is structured. How does it maybe do some capacity building work? And yeah, what are the tools, techniques by which you run this?
Yeah, it's been a tough ride, I must say.
Yeah.
Basically, of course, the core team is tiny, but I believe in the power of collaboration and co-creators. So part of our structure is that we have a big honorary curatorial board. So we have curators from around the world that are there to support. We have ambassadors to Art d'Egypte that are usually people in the fields of arts, art consultants, art foundations that are also there to help us. So the core team is tiny, and when you see the work, you say, how did the team of 8 people do that? But honestly, so many people believe in our story, and so many countries. As I was saying, the Heritage Commission from Saudi was one of our partners this year. We've had Al Cerkel, we've had also foundations from the UAE. And so this power of collaboration, especially regionally, really together we are much stronger, and this is how we're able to manage all of that. So as you said, coming closer to our exhibitions, we have so many entities that partner up with us, like all the media production and everything is a company called MO4. They come in every year to support us. We have factories that support us. We have a lot of different entities, and this is how we've managed to make this ecosystem of co-creators, because at the end it doesn't really belong to a person or to us, it belongs to everyone. And our partners this year were the artists. So the artists really contributed and thought with us, how can we make this happen? A lot of the projects were actually produced in Egypt. So instead of producing internationally and then bringing everything in and shipping it in would have cost an arm and a leg. So we started looking inwards into the factories, and the factories, half of them were like, "You're crazy. What do you mean an artist will work in a factory?" And so we started putting this idea of, guys, we can do factory residencies with the artists, why not?
Fantastic, fantastic. And Nora, for you, what is the structure of Alula like? What kind of team distribution takes place? Do you outsource? Clearly, collaboration is a key message here. I think the only way forward is through collaborations and partnerships. So how does Alula's team work, and who all do you reach out to? And is there capacity building also part of the agenda?
Absolutely. I definitely agree with Nadine. Collaboration and partnerships are key, and we very much appreciate working with our partners regionally and internationally through the different programs that we have. I think really also partnering with the community itself. We learn a lot from the community, and having the creative community of Al-Ula engaged in the process is also quite important and vital to us. So we've seen, workshops by some of the, some artists visiting Al-Ula. We had a workshop where an established artist approached part of the creative community in Al-Ula, some of which are attending Madrasat al-Dira, and really gave them a workshop about her own journey to become and be where she is today. And she also talked a lot about, not only her artistic side, but also kind of the financials and structures, and how she's working with galleries and the business side of the work, which is also important for them to understand. And I think that also the dialogue that happens between the different audience in Al-Ula, be it international community, regional community, or Al-Ula's community, is quite important. So I definitely agree in that collaboration and partnerships are key. And we continue doing that, making sure that Al-Ula's community is always at the heart and at the core of any program that we launch.
And the Al-Ula team itself, is this a small team? Is it a large team? Is it a lot of young people? Is it a lot of experience? How does this whole thing work? Because this is something very curious about all our institutions in this region. Everyone's figuring this out as we go and not necessarily inheriting old models. And I say this because, if you think about it, the kinds of knowledges needed right now are not already available to us. We have to figure them out together, because the kinds of knowledges we've inherited are not necessarily helping us go forward. Either they've been too extractive, or they've been too exclusionary. They've privileged some narratives and not others. So there's really no existing kind of a template of how to do this. So can you tell us a little bit about the team itself? Is it a big team, small team, specialists, old people, young people? Clearly a lot of women, that's fantastic.
Sure, I think it's a combination. We do have a lot of experienced specialized individuals, as well as young talents. And we also work strongly on capacity building. So we have a really strong scholarship program that targets specific specializations, especially when it comes to art and creative industries. Building capacity is quite important, and we try to work on that. In terms of the team, as I mentioned, it's a it's very much an international team. We have people from all over the world, and young as well as experienced members. So I think really having that combination and making sure that you have your younger talents mentored and learning through the process, but also focusing on capacity building is quite important.
All right, thank you. And Nadine, how do you think an initiative like Art Egypt has a significance for the larger creative economy and the future of creative economy?
Okay, I'm a true believer that you cannot segregate the creative industry. And I've been doing all these, as you say, learn as we go, really driven by passion and this belief that the whole creative industry is intertwined. And I mean, we've seen it physically, like having artists work in factories. Now a lot of factories are actually, a lot of artists are commissioning. Like one of the factories is a very well-known marble factory in Egypt. And an American artist has commissioned a piece to be done there. So what we are doing, and I'm recently launching something called the an Obelisk Design Award. Members of the jury are all mainly international jury. And we did a project called Where Art Meets Design. So it was very interesting to see how designers work with artists to create functional installations. And this worked really well. So I believe, and it gives another perspective, and it's less monotonous for a lot of people. So music, art, cinema, design, everything is intertwined. And I believe you can't really segregate that.
Thank you. And clearly this is speaking to a much larger ecosystem of arts, collaborations, and creative thinking, really.
Exactly.
And what we see in the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia is that there's a whole Vision 2030 strategy that is being developed at a very large scale. And I wanted to ask you, Nora, how Alula feeds in or responds to the Vision 2030 at KSA.
So let me start maybe with, on that point, maybe globally. I think there is very much a global recognition today that culture and creative industries are vital for our economic future. And you see many cities and countries across the world shifting to that direction. UNESCO has put an annual revenue on culture and creative sector at $2.2 trillion with a revenue of 250 billion. So, and you're roughly talking about 30 million people employed globally in those sectors. So, relatively speaking, it is a significant sector that needs attention. And when it comes to Saudi's Vision 2030, obviously there is a focus on a strong focus on arts and culture within many different fields, and we have them, you know, with the Ministry of Culture in Saudi having 11 sectors. All of those have strong focus and work on policies, work on building capacity and building the infrastructure for those industries. And Al-Ula falls within that, given it focuses within its development as a destination, it focuses on arts, culture and nature. I think with Al-Ula's development, we've launched the master plan, our Journey Through Time master plan, back in April. And that includes multiple cultural cultural assets between museums, galleries, and experiences that are intertwined and building a very unique cultural destination that contributes to the larger vision.
All right, thank you. I want to ask you, Nadine, and actually also I'll come to you, Nora, with the same question. What are the challenges? What are the key challenges you face in the work that you're doing? I know it's a tough one, and you know, there might be so many.
That's a very, very tough one.
Yeah? I mean, where do you even begin, right?
Look, Egypt is very different because, I mean, if you say Egypt to anyone in the world, they'll talk to you about the past. But to have Egyptians and the rest of the world look into the contemporary Egypt, that was the most challenging one, because archaeologists at the beginning, when we started in Tahrir Museum, were completely opposed. I mean, one, what is contemporary art? You know, why are you even putting something that looks ugly close to the beautiful sculptures? So one is we've done so much work. That's why I'm saying it was a very tough ride.
To change the
mindset. To
mindset.
have archaeologists now advocate for what we're doing was really difficult, because you're working on so many different entities. So working on convincing archaeologists that through contemporary art you are reviving and repurposing these spaces was a challenge. Convincing the government that this is an important thing to do, and there's cultural tourism, which Egypt has lost along the way, and which we should bring back, and we have to have this language that people from today understand, and we've proven that as well. Again, the private sector. So through creating public-private partnerships, also that was something that was lost. So to get the private sector to support cultural initiatives was very difficult. And until today, after all this success, funding is still an issue. Whether private, public, it's really challenging. And what Noura was saying, as she said, I mean, Saudi, in my opinion, did a great thing with the Ministry of Culture, because look at all the aspects. I mean, they have, one of them is culinary, and there's heritage as well. So bringing them all together under one umbrella is so smart, because it's fast-tracking everything. So again, we're, as Art d'Egypte, trying to do this from scratch, which was really draining. But again, what keeps us going is the results. And all the community engagement programs we do, this year, the most amazing thing were the workers. We had 150 workers work on the art installations with the artists. And the collaboration between those workers and the artists, they both don't speak the same language, and they were so proud of being part of this project as well. In Mu'izz Street in historic Cairo, all the young boys and girls, we with the help of UNESCO, did workshops and worked with them and turned them into something called Guardians of Heritage. And they felt so empowered. They were actually the ones explaining to the ministers and to the VIPs the importance of cultural heritage and how to preserve. Because at the end of the day, if the local communities don't understand the value of what they have and aren't aware enough, then whatever we're trying to do in terms of preserving, in terms of renovating, will not work. So these people understand, and they themselves are the ones that are protecting their own sites.
Excellent, fantastic. In the interest of time, Nora, I'm going to request if you can answer the same question of the key challenges you faced. Very short and very brief, please.
Sure. I think really Al-Ula has a very rich fabric and history. I think one of the good challenges is that you have a lot of interest from the creatives, both locally and regionally and internationally, actually, to really collaborate, and they have so many ideas to implement. And I think our role is to create that platform to allow for that creativity. So we've recently launched Al-Ula's Design Award that gives opportunity for designers and creatives to submit designs in multiple fields, and that is open till December 30th for submissions. But just also I'd like to add on that the challenge of bringing history and art together. I'd like to probably end my thoughts with a quote that I heard from one of the artists visiting Al-Ula, who said all art is contemporary art because it was done in the now. And that stayed with me, and I think that really bridges that gap between, let's say, your not all archaeologists, but some archaeologists and the contemporary art world, and art of Al-Ula is a gift for the world.
Beautiful. That's amazing. Well, we have just last 5 minutes left, and I'm just going to ask each of you what's next in this meeting of the past, present, and future. For you, Nadine, and then after that, Nora.
Hopefully bigger collaborations and maybe something for the whole region. That's my dream.
I think that's the way to go, something for the whole region. Nora, what's next at Al-Ula?
We've launched our art festival. We've announced our arts festival yesterday, and we have multiple programs, including Desert X's next chapter, which we're very much excited about. And this allows for so many collaborations on different levels with all cultural organizations. So we're definitely open for that, and looking forward to seeing you guys in February in Al-Ula.
Amazing. Thank you very much. Well, on that note, let's just conclude by recounting a few key things. I think the re-Renaissance question that comes up is really a valuable one for all of us to think about in our respective locations. What is the golden age we want to look back to, and how does it become relevant today? What are the golden ages now? And what do we do with that collectively? I think the way both speakers today have spoken about the resource pools that need to be built, the collaborations across regions to create a kind of identity and pride for the region, and of course, all of the kinds of changes needed in being more inclusive. The fact that both of these organizations and institutions have a lot of young people, have a lot of women at the forefront leading these initiatives, I think is already a great, great message for all of us to learn and look forward to so much going on. So thank you both, and thank you everyone who's attended. Thank you everyone who's attended online. You've been a great audience. And let's stay in touch. You can visit their websites. Yeah, thank you very much. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you, Nadine. Thank you, Nora.